Let's take a brief look at the Biker Character Pack DLC. This was the 6th character pack released for Payday 2 and focuses on the style and flair of Harley-Davidson's core demographic, old people. Despite the DLC's name, this isn't another Hotline Miami character. The biker in the title is referring to Tom Bishop, aka Rust, a 61-year-old hardcore biker badass played by none other than the Ron Perlman. His introduction is showcased in a fantastic live-action trailer which is linked above. His backstory, on the other hand, is a bit poorly laid out. As far as I can gather, the Elephant offered Rust a spot in the Payday crew on Bane's behalf, in exchange for backstabbing his former gang, the Overkill MC. That gang had, as biker gangs are apparently apt to do in this universe, gotten their hands on a high-tech score that the Payday crew wants to steal. Rust kills off his former friends, and after a little coaxing, spills the beans on where the Overkill MC is dragging the advanced weaponry off to. I'll go over the story in more detail in my biker heist review where it's more relevant, but in this video we'll be focusing on Rust himself, starting with his voice.
Put him up. Just extra ammo over here. Medic bag in place. I could have made it in porn. Just saying, you know? I coulda.
I mean, he's Ron fucking Perlman, the voice of a god and vocabulary of the devil himself, although perhaps his betrayal of Rust takes the swearing and insults just a bit too far?
Cocksucking taser. Fuck off, punk-ass taser. The fucking dozer. Bitch-ass dozer down. Take that, sniper fuck. Bitch-ass taser spotted. Fuck you, punk taser. Go to fucking hell, sniper. I took care of punk-ass shield. Suck my fat dick, cloaker. Punk shit, fucking bitch-ass porn. Fuck you, shield fuck.
It's one thing to be raunchy, and another thing to never stop swearing. I don't think it'd be an exaggeration to say that the vast majority of Rust's dialogue include the words punk, cock, dick, ass, or fuck. I get that he's a hard-boiled, foul-mouthed peddler, but the lack of variety in his delivery gets grating fast. Not to mention that while Ron Perlman is kick-ass and a high-profile actor, a good amount of his lines feel half-assed in his delivery. He's even admitted that he only took the job for the check. Not like I can blame him for that, but it makes the character feel all the more boring. Topping it all off with missing call lines for all new characters and enemies released after his introduction, seeing as Ron Perlman is far too busy not being Hellboy to record new lines, Rust simply feels empty. Uninspired. I feel like the publicity and cool factor garnered from casting Ron Perlman is completely offset by the price Overkill would have to pay to get a good delivery out of him. Sorry. Well, regardless of my opinion, let's look at objectively reviewable content, namely Rust's perk deck, aptly named Biker. The idea behind this perk deck is team-based health and armor regeneration. When the perk deck is maxed out, every time you or your teammates score a kill, you, not your team, just you, will heal 5 health and armor. On top of this, the more health and armor you're missing, the more of the inverse you'll restore, in increments of 1 bonus restoration per 10% of the opposing stat you're low on. For instance, if you're at half health, you'll restore 10 armor upon kill, and if you're completely out of armor, you'll restore 20 HP upon kill. This isn't limitless, however. Basically, and this is where it gets a bit tricky to explain, instead of a single cooldown like with most other regen-based perk decks, Biker has 4 separate cooldowns, all on separate timers. Meaning, Biker's restoration effect can trigger 4 times before it'll no longer work. The individual timers each take 4 seconds to reset, but this will be sped up by 0.1 seconds for every bonus point of health and armor regen past their base of 5. That is confusing. Frankly, I went through several iterations of the script trying to find a good way to explain it better, but the long and short of the matter is the lower your health and armor is, the more you'll restore upon enemy death, with a faster cooldown to boot. The closer you are to death, the more efficiently you'll restore life. This jives well with Biker's team-based aspect. Let's say you're at barely any health, such as having just been revived on Mayhem or above. You can dive into cover away from any enemies and let your teammates do the dirty work. Every kill they get will restore your HP and armor bit by bit until you're topped off. It'll take longer the closer you are to max health, but by that point you should be ready to jump back into the fight yourself. This is all well and good, but frankly, I'd prefer another perk deck altogether. I've discussed this before when I talked about Sociopath pre-buff, how trying to do a little bit of everything is inferior to massive buffs to a single stat. Small amounts of health and armor regeneration, even when it's effectively passive, will always lose out to big defense or health boosts. For a restoration-based build, I'd rather take Grinder's constant and reliable HP regen, or Anarchist's semi-reliable armor regen with a massive base armor stat to back it up. However, that doesn't mean Biker is outright terrible, simply outclassed in my eyes. If you're looking to use Biker effectively, I'd recommend nabbing Bullseye and Hostage Taker Ace to further stimulate the measly gains the perk deck provides, and rolling with a crew that's pining to pad their kill count. Overall, Biker's not outright terrible, just not my cup of tea. What about the firearm though? The Breaker 12-gauge shotgun is Rust's weapon of choice, and I'll go ahead and say it is the best part of this entire DLC. Despite a subpar ammo economy due to a low-end pickup rate and ammo pool, the raw power of the Breaker is only matched, in the primary slot at least, by the Moss, Scony, and Jocelyn. However, the Breaker has over 3 times the mag capacity of the double barrels, clocking in at 7 shots per mag. When combined with its absurdly fast interruptible reload punctuated by a stylish flip, the only downtimes the Breaker will be facing are when it has to slowly collect ammo drops while the player leans on their secondary. I'd argue this isn't a weapon you should be relying on for sweeping corridors, although with its absurd spread and Payday 2's forgiving shotgun mechanics, it's more than capable of that. Rather, I'd say it's more akin to the rocket launcher of shotguns. When a big group of specials or a couple of bulldozers are charging straight at you, break out the Breaker and clear house. Then put it back until it's needed again, or you'll find yourself making frequent trips to your local ammo bag. I do have some grievances with this 12 gauge's over-the-top animations, however. While it helps to amplify the impact of pulling the trigger, it also makes aiming a hassle. When aimed down sights, the weapon will still be blocking the player's view for a good second or so long after another shell is primed. Because of this, I find myself using hipfire as my main method of aim with the Breaker, as the animation is far more forgiving. Regardless, the satisfaction of popping heads with the Breaker 12 gauge is my favorite experience this DLC has to offer, provided I'm bringing ammo bags to keep the good times going. Melee weapon. The chain whip is slow and clunky and doesn't work in VR, much like a Bethesda product. And there we have it, that's just about everything. So, was the Biker character pack a good addition? I mean, I guess Payday isn't an objectively worse game for having this DLC, but it certainly wouldn't be a failure without it. Ron Perlman is a wonderful son of an anarchist, but he certainly didn't give it his all with Rust. I can appreciate the hardcore swearing and aggressive dialogue if there was a, well, character to go along with it, instead of an absurdly limited personality with a vocabulary to match. The perk deck is a great idea, but in a game of min-maxing, trying to divvy up the restoration between armor and health is never gonna work out. The Breaker 12 gauge is the highlight of this DLC for me, with the raw damage output and style factor being well worth a non-existent ammo gain. However, just the shotgun isn't enough to save this pack for me, especially when the free judge can offer similar performance in the secondary slot. Overall, it's hardly the worst character pack in the game, but in my opinion, only barely. That'll be everything. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.